My fiancé accused me of cheating in front of his family, then proposed to his ex at our anniversary dinner. My fiancé accused me of cheating in front of his family, then proposed to his ex at our anniversary dinner after she showed up coincidentally. As he slipped the ring on her finger, he looked at me and said, "You should be grateful I kept you around as long as I did." I smiled and waited. 3 days later, my phone exploded with 27 missed calls. You guys, I still can't believe this happened to me last week. I keep replaying everything in my head like maybe I imagined it all. But nope, the leftover pasta in my fridge and the tear stains on my pillow are very real evidence. For context, I had been with Alex for 3 years, not some casual fling or whatever. We had our whole life practically mapped out. Sunday brunch at our favorite cafe, monthly game nights with friends, even those ridiculous couples cooking classes he insisted on taking, even though we both nearly set the kitchen on fire trying to make soufflés. We weren't perfect, who is? But I thought we were solid. We'd even talked about buying a house together next spring. Alex had these little annoying habits, leaving wet towels on the bed, interrupting me during movies to explain plots I already understood, and making these helpful comments about my appearance like, "That dress would look better on someone taller," or "Maybe you should try highlighting your hair." I always brushed it off as him being straightforward and honest. Past me was such an idiot. So last Friday, Alex texted about this fancy dinner with his family. His parents were visiting from Chicago, and apparently his mom had made reservations at Bellini's, this super expensive Italian place downtown that we'd been wanting to try forever. I was actually excited. I went out and bought a new dress, goodbye rent money, spent 2 hours on my makeup and even got my hair done. We're talking full-on special occasion prep. The curling iron I'm terrified of burning myself with, the expensive foundation I save for important events, waterproof mascara, the works. I arrived at the restaurant, only 5 minutes late because downtown parking is impossible, and immediately felt something was off. Alex barely looked up from his phone when I approached the table, just gave me this half smile and said, "Finally decided to show up." His mom gave me a hug while his dad and brother nodded hello, but there was this weird tension in the air. I sat down next to Alex and he immediately made this face at my outfit and whispered, "You wore that? I thought you'd dress up." I was wearing a navy blue cocktail dress that I had literally just bought that day. Nothing crazy or inappropriate, just elegant and nice. The comment stung, but I tried to laugh it off and asked if there was a dress code I didn't know about. He just shrugged and said they'd already ordered appetizers. The next hour was basically Alex and his family discussing their family business while I sat there smiling awkwardly. Whenever I tried to join the conversation, Alex would either talk over me or correct something I said. At one point, I mentioned a project I was leading at work and Alex interrupted with, "She's exaggerating. It's just a small team assignment, nothing major. I've been a project manager for 3 years." I was sitting there feeling more uncomfortable by the minute, wondering if Alex had always been this dismissive and I somehow never noticed, or if he was showing off for his family. Either way, it felt horrible. Then, his brother asked how we met, and I started telling the story about how we'd both reached for the same book at the bookstore. Alex cut me off mid-sentence and said, "She thinks it was fate or something." I just felt bad because she looked so desperate standing there alone. Then he laughed. My stomach dropped. That's not even close to what happened. He was the one who had asked for my number and texted me that same night. I excused myself to the bathroom, mostly so I wouldn't cry in front of his family. I was in the stall texting my best friend Mia like, "WTF is happening?" When I got a notification that Alex had just tagged himself at the restaurant on Instagram with special night with the family. Like I wasn't even there. Mia called immediately, but I sent her to voicemail because I didn't want anyone to hear me crying. I splashed some water on my face, fixed my makeup, and gave myself a sad little pep talk in the mirror about getting through dinner with dignity. When I got back to the table, they all stopped talking abruptly. Great. The waiter brought our main courses, and Alex kept making these little comments about my food choice. I'd ordered the truffle pasta, one of the less expensive options because I was worried about the bill, and he kept saying stuff like carb loading for hibernation? And that's a bold choice for someone with your metabolism. Each comment felt like a tiny needle, and they were adding up fast. By this point, I was barely eating, just pushing pasta around my plate and counting the seconds until I could leave. Then, Alex started bragging about his recent promotion, saying his boss had put him in charge of their biggest account. Something clicked in my brain. The week before, Alex had been complaining that his portion of the project was minimal and his boss had barely acknowledged his contributions. Now suddenly he was the star? Then the strangest thing happened. The hostess approached our table with another woman, a gorgeous brunette who Alex seemed shocked to see. "Emma, what are you doing here?" he stammered, standing up quickly. His mother's face lit up as she hugged this woman, saying, "You made it. So wonderful to see you again." Emma, his ex-girlfriend from college, the one he dated for 4 years before me, the one he claimed his family never really connected with. Yet here she was, being welcomed like a long-lost daughter while his mother pulled up another chair, right between Alex and his dad. I sat there in complete shock as Emma seamlessly joined the conversation, laughing at inside jokes and updating his parents on her life. Alex kept looking between us nervously, but didn't bother to acknowledge the awkwardness or even properly introduce us. His brother gave me this pitying look that made everything 1,000 times worse. After about 20 excruciating minutes of this, the waiter brought dessert. A chocolate soufflé with "congratulations" written in chocolate sauce on the plate. I was confused, thinking maybe it was for Alex's promotion, when he suddenly stood up, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped. Was this actually happening? Despite everything, was he going to propose? Right now? He cleared his throat and said, "I've been waiting for the perfect moment, and with everyone I care about here, this feels right." Then he turned to Emma. Not to me. "Emma, we've been apart for too long. These past few months reconnecting have shown me what I've been missing. You're the one I want to spend my life with. Will you marry me?" The entire restaurant went silent. His mother was crying tears of joy. His father was beaming. His brother looked embarrassed but not surprised. And Emma? She looked shocked for about 2 seconds before breaking into the biggest smile and saying yes. I sat there, completely frozen, as Alex slipped my grandmother's ring, the one his mom had given him for me, the one we'd discussed, the one I tried on just to check the size 6 months ago, onto Emma's finger. Then Alex turned to me with this cold look I'd never seen before and said loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "A girl like you should be grateful I kept you around as long as I did. Did you really think someone like me would end up with someone like you?" His mother actually had the audacity to pat my hand and say, "Dear, we tried to like you, we really did. But Emma has always been part of the family." I don't know how I managed to stand up without collapsing. I grabbed my purse, looked Alex straight in the eyes and said absolutely nothing. I just smiled. Then I walked out with as much dignity as I could muster, made it to my car, and broke down completely. After ugly crying for about 20 minutes, I called Mia, who could barely understand me through the sobbing. She and her boyfriend came to pick me up because I was in no condition to drive, and took me back to their place where I spent the night cycling between crying, rage texting into a draft folder I never sent, and eating all their ice cream. That was 3 days ago. I've been holed up in my apartment since then, ignoring calls from work and surviving on delivery pizza, and the emergency chocolate stash I keep in my freezer. This morning my phone exploded with notifications. 27 missed calls from Alex, his family members, mutual friends, and numbers I didn't even recognize. Apparently, there's more to this story than I realized. And from what I'm hearing, Alex's perfect night didn't turn out exactly as he planned. First update. First, thank you so much for all the supportive comments on my last post. I literally cried reading some of them. Good tears this time. A lot of you asked for an update, so here's what happened after that nightmare of a dinner. So after spending the weekend in what I can only describe as a grief cocoon, unwashed hair, same pajamas for 48 hours, and enough ice cream to make my lactose intolerance cry for mercy, I finally checked my phone Monday morning. 27 missed calls, 14 voicemails, 36 text messages, and one very interesting email from Emma. I'll get to that email in a minute, but first the voicemails. Most were from Alex, starting with angry, "You're so dramatic walking out like that." Then shifting to panicked, "Call me back, we need to talk." And finally settling on pathetic, "Please just let me explain." 3 were from his mother, fake apologizing while simultaneously suggesting I take this opportunity for personal growth. 2 were from mutual friends who had apparently heard some version of the story from Alex and wanted my side. But the most interesting voicemail was from Alex's brother Jake. "Hey Lily, it's Jake. Look, what happened last night was messed up, and you deserve to know the truth. Call me when you can. And I'm sorry." I was still processing all this when I opened Emma's email. The subject line was simple. "You deserve to know." Apparently, Emma had no idea I existed. None. Alex had reached out to her about 2 months ago, claiming he was single and had been thinking about her. They'd been meeting for coffee, then dinners, then, well, you can guess the rest. He told her his family missed her and wanted to see her again. He told her he'd never gotten over her and regretted their breakup. He told her I was his cousin who was staying with him temporarily while looking for a job. His cousin. 3 years. We'd been together 3 years. We had a joint Costco membership. Emma attached screenshots of their text conversations, and trust me, they made me want to throw my phone through the window. There was Alex complaining about his clingy cousin, who doesn't understand personal space. There was Alex making plans with Emma, while he was supposedly working late. There was Alex telling Emma he'd never loved anyone but her. I felt sick, like physically ill, but also oddly relieved. At least now I knew I wasn't crazy. Alex was just a pathological liar. After pulling myself together and stress cleaning my entire kitchen, I called Jake back. He confirmed everything Emma had said and added some crucial details. Apparently, Alex had been planning this for months. The engagement ring? He'd asked his mother for his grandmother's ring under the pretense of proposing to me, but had secretly always intended it for Emma. The family dinner? Orchestrated specifically for the proposal, with everyone except Jake fully on board. According to Jake, his parents had never warmed up to me because Alex had been feeding them lies the entire time, telling them I was controlling, bad with money, and pushing for marriage when he wasn't ready. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked Jake. "I tried a few times, but Alex would always talk his way out of it, and my parents believe everything he says. He's always been the golden child." Jake sounded truly remorseful. "For what it's worth, I always thought you were good for him. Too good, honestly." After talking to Jake, I felt this weird mix of heartbreak and fury. 3 years of my life with someone who could lie so easily? Who could plan such a humiliating setup? Who could look me in the eye day after day while secretly rebuilding a relationship with his ex? I decided to meet Emma for coffee the next day. Mia thought I was insane. You're going to meet the woman your ex cheated with? Are you planning to poison her latte? But I needed to hear everything directly. The coffee shop meeting was awkward at first, but quickly turned into the most validating 2 hours of my life. Emma was actually nice. She was just as angry as I was, maybe more. She genuinely believed Alex was single, and had been blindsided by the realization that she was the other woman. I would never have gone near him if I'd known about you, she insisted, showing me more text conversations. Look at this, I specifically asked if he was seeing anyone and he said no. Multiple times. We compared notes, filling in gaps in each other's understanding of the situation. Emma had broken up with Alex in college because she caught him lying about small things that eventually added up to big trust issues. Sound familiar? She'd been hesitant when he reached out again, but he'd seemed so sincere about having changed. The proposal was a complete shock, she admitted. We'd only been seeing each other for 2 months. Who proposes after 2 months? Someone who's been planning it while in a 3-year relationship with someone else, I said, and we both laughed, that weird laugh that comes from shared trauma. By our third coffee, we'd moved from shock to strategy. Emma had already broken things off with Alex, returning the ring to his mother with a detailed explanation of exactly why she was walking away. But we both felt like that wasn't enough. He needs to face consequences, Emma said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. Real ones. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from Alex. We need to talk. I'm coming over tonight. Emma and I looked at each other, and I swear we had the same thought at the exact same moment. You know, she said slowly, my apartment has a really comfortable guest room. I stayed with Emma that night. And the next. My phone kept buzzing with increasingly desperate messages from Alex, who showed up at my apartment multiple times only to find no one home. On day 3, when I finally went back to get more clothes, he was waiting in the parking lot. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing what appeared to be the same shirt from the restaurant. Lily, he called out, rushing toward my car. Please just let me explain. I stayed calm, channeling that same strange calmness I'd felt walking out of the restaurant. Explain what, Alex? How you spent months cheating on me while planning a public proposal to your ex-girlfriend. How you told your family I was controlling and desperate. How you told Emma I was your cousin. His face went pale. You talked to Emma? She's lying. She's always been jealous of. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I've seen the texts. I've talked to Jake. I know everything. Jake. His expression shifted from desperate to angry. My brother has always been jealous of me, you can't believe. Actually, I believe all of it. Because it makes perfect sense. I took a deep breath. You know what doesn't make sense? Why you kept me around for 3 years if you were so unhappy. That's when he said something that actually made me laugh out loud. I felt sorry for you. I didn't think you could do better than me. Classic Alex. Even his attempt at an explanation was an insult. Well, I said, unlocking my apartment door, I already have done better. I've discovered what it's like to not be with you, and it's amazing. I spent exactly 45 minutes in my apartment, packing more clothes and essentials while Alex knocked continuously on the door, alternating between apologies and accusations. When I left, he tried to block my way. Move, I said quietly. Not until you hear me out, he insisted. That's when the apartment door across the hall opened, and my neighbor Mrs. Chun stepped out with her phone clearly recording. Is there a problem, Lily? She asked, pointing her phone directly at Alex. I've already called building security, but I can call the police if this young man won't leave you alone. Alex backed away instantly. This isn't over, he muttered. But it was. At least I thought it was. Until I got back to Emma's and found her in tears, her laptop open to her company's website, where her profile had been completely removed. I've been fired, she whispered. For ethical violations. Alex's father is golf buddies with my CEO. That's when we realized this wasn't just about a relationship anymore. This was about power, control, and a family that believed they could crush anyone who challenged them. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. Not really. Because while Alex had been plotting his romantic reunion with Emma, I'd been quietly excelling at my job, specifically in the company's legal department, where I'd made some very good friends over the past 3 years. Second update. I've been putting off this update because honestly the past few weeks have been intense, but you all deserve to know what happened after Emma got fired. So where were we? Right? Emma had just discovered she'd been fired from her marketing director position at a company where Alex's father apparently had significant influence. We were sitting in her kitchen, staring at her laptop in disbelief, when my phone buzzed with an email from my own company. Subject: meeting with HR urgent. My stomach dropped. Was I about to be fired too? How far did the Sullivan family's influence reach? I called my team lead Priya immediately. She answered on the first ring, which wasn't a good sign. What's going on? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Lily, I'm so sorry, Priya sighed. HR received some concerning emails this morning. From your personal account. What emails? I didn't send any emails to HR. They appear to show you sharing confidential client information with outside parties. And there's other content. Inappropriate content. My mind was racing. My personal email? I hadn't sent anything to HR, let alone confidential information. Then it hit me. Alex had my passwords. Of course he did. After 3 years together, we knew all each other's logins. I'd never even thought to change them after the restaurant disaster. Priya, I swear I didn't send those emails. My ex must have. Look, don't say anything else over the phone. Just come in tomorrow for the meeting.
9 Uhr morgens.
And Lily, bring any evidence you have that those emails aren't from you. I hung up and immediately started changing every password I could think of. Email, social media, banking, everything. Emma watched me, her own shock temporarily forgotten. He's trying to destroy us both, she said quietly. Not trying. He thinks he's already succeeded. I looked up from my phone. But he's made a huge mistake. What's that? He's left a trail. And he has no idea who I've become in the 3 years he's been underestimating me. See, while Alex had been dismissing my career as just a job, I'd been building a reputation as one of the most detail-oriented paralegals in our firm's history. I wasn't a lawyer, but I worked with enough of them to know exactly how evidence works. That night, Emma and I went into full detective mode. We recovered deleted emails, tracked IP addresses, and documented every single interaction we'd had with Alex and his family. Emma even found old texts from college showing his pattern of manipulation. By 3 a.m., we had compiled enough digital evidence to make a IT security expert proud. The next morning, I walked into my HR meeting armed with a folder full of printouts and my own lawyer. My friend Jess from the firm's litigation department, who had been all too happy to help when I called her at midnight. The HR director, Ms. Patel, looked startled when I wasn't alone, but recovered quickly. Ms. Chun is here as a colleague, not legal representation, she said carefully. Actually, Jess smiled, I'm here as both. And before we begin, I'd like to present evidence that Ms. Park's email was compromised as part of a systematic harassment campaign by her ex-boyfriend, Alexander Sullivan, and potentially members of his family. Ms. Patel's eyebrows shot up. That's a serious allegation. Yes, it is. And we have the digital forensics to prove it. The next hour was basically Jess giving a masterclass in how to dismantle a frame job. She showed the email headers proving the messages came from an IP address at Alex's apartment, not mine. She presented the timeline of events leading up to the fake emails, including time-stamped photos from the restaurant incident. She even had statements from Emma and Jake documenting Alex's history of manipulation. By the end, Ms. Patel was actually taking notes. This is concerning to say the least. Not just for you, Lily, but for the company. If what you're saying is true. It is, I interrupted. And there's more. Emma Wu, Alex's ex-girlfriend who was also targeted, was unfairly terminated from her position at Meridian Marketing yesterday. We have reason to believe Robert Sullivan, Alex's father, used his influence to pressure her CEO. Ms. Patel closed her folder slowly. I think I need to bring in our legal team. That afternoon, instead of being fired, I found myself in a conference room with the company's chief counsel as they took my statement. Turns out, corporations don't appreciate being used as weapons in personal vendettas. Who knew? By evening, Emma had received a call from her former employer requesting an urgent meeting the following day. Apparently, our evidence had made its way to Meridian's legal department as well. We thought that might be the end of it. Alex had failed to get us fired, his attempts at sabotage had backfired, and surely he would back off now. We were wrong. That night, as Emma and I were celebrating our small victory with takeout Thai food, the doorbell rang. Emma peered through the peephole and jumped back like she'd been shocked. It's Alex's mom, she whispered. We looked at each other in confusion. Why would Catherine Sullivan come here? Against my better judgment, Emma opened the door. Catherine stood there looking impeccable as always, but there was something different about her. Her usual confident posture was gone, replaced by what almost looked like fear. May I come in? She asked quietly. There are some things you both need to know. We let her in, more out of curiosity than hospitality. Catherine sat perched on the edge of Emma's couch, hands clasped tightly in her lap. First, I want to apologize, she began, which was so unexpected I nearly dropped my wine glass. What happened at the restaurant was unforgivable. I was told a different story about both of you. By Alex, I supplied. She nodded. By Alex. And by Robert, who believed Alex. My son has always been. She paused, searching for words. Convincing when he wants to be. Emma crossed her arms. Why are you really here, Catherine? Because if you're hoping to smooth things over, so we'll drop the evidence we've compiled. No, Catherine interrupted sharply. I'm here to add to it. She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a flash drive. This contains emails, financial records, and recordings that show a pattern of behavior from both Alex and Robert. Behavior I've ignored for too long. Emma and I exchanged skeptical glances. Was this some kind of trap? Catherine must have sensed our hesitation because she continued. Last night, I overheard them discussing how they'd handled both of you. Robert was praising Alex for, her voice caught, for following in his footsteps, for showing the same ruthlessness Robert believes is necessary in business and in life. She looked directly at me. They were laughing about getting you fired. Why should we believe you're suddenly against what they're doing? I asked. Catherine's perfectly maintained facade cracked just slightly, Because 30 years ago I was you. The girl who was discarded when someone more useful came along. The career that was mysteriously derailed. The reputation that was quietly destroyed. She straightened her shoulders. The difference is I married the man who did it to me. The room went silent. Emma was the first to recover. What exactly are you suggesting, Catherine? I'm suggesting that my son and husband won't stop until they feel they've won. They believe they're untouchable. She placed the flash drive on the coffee table. I'm suggesting it's time someone proved them wrong. After Catherine left, Emma and I stayed up all night going through the files on the drive. It was shocking emails showing Robert pressuring Emma's CEO with veiled threats about board positions, Alex accessing my work account through a saved password, discussions about what stories to spread among our mutual friends. The level of calculated malice was breathtaking. But the most disturbing part was understanding that this wasn't just about me or Emma. This was a pattern the Sullivan men had repeated with others. Former employees who'd mysteriously lost jobs after disagreements. Business partners who'd been systematically pushed out of deals. Even Jake had been a target, with his father repeatedly undermining his attempts to start his own business. By morning we had a decision to make. We could use this information defensively, protecting ourselves and maybe helping restore Emma's job. Or we could go on the offensive. The choice was clear. Our first step was contacting Jake, who came over immediately after seeing some of what his mother had provided. He looked both devastated and relieved. I always knew something wasn't right, he said, scrolling through the emails. But I had no idea it went this far. With Jake on board, we reached out to others who'd been mentioned in the files, former employees, business associates, even an ex-girlfriend of Alex's from before Emma. The pattern was identical. Manipulation, gaslighting, and eventual professional sabotage when things didn't go their way. 3 days later my phone exploded again. This time with notifications about Alex. Someone, definitely not me, as I can prove with timestamped grocery store receipts, had compiled all the evidence into a comprehensive document and sent it to the board members at Sullivan Investments, Robert's company. The same document somehow found its way to business journalists at 3 major publications. By noon, Robert Sullivan was facing calls to step down as CEO. By evening, Alex had been removed from the company's website. And by the following morning, Catherine Sullivan had filed for divorce. The most surprising call came from Alex's grandmother, the original owner of that ring, who asked to meet me for tea. She was a tiny, elegant woman with shrewd eyes that missed nothing. I always knew that boy wasn't worthy of my ring, she said without preamble. Robert ruined him from the start, taught him that women are either obstacles or stepping stones. She patted my hand. You're neither, dear. And I'm glad you showed him that. It's been 2 weeks since everything exploded. Emma got her job back, with a raise and a public apology from the CEO. My company's legal team has been incredible, even offering to represent other victims of the Sullivans' manipulation pro bono. Jake has finally started the restaurant he always wanted, free from his father's interference. As for me, I've moved back to my apartment, changed the locks, and started therapy to unpack the 3 years I spent with someone who saw me as nothing but a placeholder. Some days are still hard. I find myself double-guessing my memories, wondering if there were signs I missed, moments I should have recognized for what they were. But then I remember walking out of that restaurant with my head held high. I remember building the case that brought truth to light. I remember choosing myself. Alex has tried to contact me once since everything fell apart. A text that simply read, "You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond, but the answer is yes. Not immediately, not perfectly, but increasingly, yes, I am. Final update. It's been 6 months since everything went down with Alex and the Sullivan family, and so much has changed that I barely know where to begin. First, thank you all for the incredible support on my previous posts. Your comments genuinely helped me through some really dark days. Many of you have been asking for an update, so here's where things stand now. Let's start with the biggest news. Sullivan Investments is no longer Sullivan Investments. After the evidence Catherine provided became public, the board moved quickly to distance themselves from the scandal. Robert was forced to resign as CEO, though allowed to retire, was the official statement. And the company underwent a complete rebrand. They're now Meridian Capital Partners, with a new leadership team that notably includes 2 women as top executives. Speaking of Catherine, she followed through with the divorce and, in a move that shocked everyone, declined the massive settlement Robert offered. Instead, she asked only for their summer house in Maine and a specific painting she'd brought into the marriage. According to Jake, she's living there now, volunteering at a women's shelter and rediscovering who she was before she became a Sullivan. We keep in touch through occasional texts. She's not exactly a friend, but there's a mutual respect that feels like enough. Robert himself has essentially disappeared from public life. Jake heard he bought a place in Arizona and spends his days golfing and pretending the last 6 months never happened. Classic. Alex. Well, Alex has gone through several phases since everything imploded. First came the anger, furious texts and emails blaming me for destroying his family. When those went unanswered, he shifted to pleading, sending flowers to my office with cards about forgiveness and second chances. Those went directly into the break room with a note saying free flowers, courtesy of my ex's guilty conscience. When that approach failed, he tried the grand gesture. He showed up outside my apartment building with a guitar, attempting to serenade me with what I can only describe as the world's most painful rendition of apologize. My neighbors recorded the whole thing, and someone, definitely not me, may have posted it to TikTok, where it gained a modest following under hashtag #ToxicXSerenadeFailure. Security escorted him away, and the restraining order I filed the next day ensured he wouldn't be making repeat performances. The last I heard, Alex had moved to Seattle to start fresh. According to social media, viewed through my friend's account since I've blocked him everywhere, he's rebranded himself as a mindfulness coach, focusing on helping men reclaim their authentic power. Whatever that means. His new profile pictures all show him looking pensively into the distance, holding crystals or sitting in meditation poses. The transformation would be funny if it weren't so predictable. Alex always did excel at reinventing himself when his previous persona stopped working. As for Emma, she's absolutely thriving. Her reinstated position at Meridian Marketing came with a promotion and a public acknowledgement of the wrongful termination. She's dating a veterinarian she met when her cat needed emergency treatment, super cute story, and we still meet for coffee every few weeks. What started as a trauma bond has evolved into a genuine friendship that I'm truly grateful for. Jake has become an unexpected constant in my life too. His restaurant, Honest Table, opened 3 months ago and is already gaining attention for its farm-to-table concept. He hired Emma's marketing firm to handle his branding, without any family discount, he insists, and he's hosted 2 Sullivan Survivors dinners where those of us affected by his family's manipulation can share stories over amazing food. It's strangely therapeutic. As for me, I've been promoted at work, where the entire ordeal actually enhanced my reputation for thoroughness and unflappability. If she can compile evidence against her ex-boyfriend's family empire while facing termination, imagine what she can do for our clients, my boss apparently said in a partners meeting. I've moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city, one that has no memories of Alex attached to it. It's smaller but has this incredible little balcony where I've started growing herbs and reading actual physical books again instead of scrolling through my phone. Dating still feels like a distant possibility rather than an immediate interest, but I've recently connected with someone who knows the whole story and doesn't treat me like I'm fragile because of it. We're taking things glacially slow, but there's something refreshing about being with someone who values straightforward communication after years of navigating Alex's manipulations. The hardest part of all this has been learning to trust my instincts again. For 3 years, I ignored small warnings, explained away inconsistencies, and convinced myself that my discomfort was the problem rather than Alex's behavior. That kind of self-doubt doesn't disappear overnight. My therapist calls it recalibrating your normal meter, the process of recognizing what healthy actually feels like when you've been swimming in toxic for so long. It's ongoing work, but I'm getting better at identifying what I want and need without second-guessing myself. Last week, I ran into one of Alex's friends at a coffee shop, the one who had always seemed the most decent of his group. He looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot while waiting for his order. I should have said something, he finally blurted out. I knew some of what Alex was doing, not all of it, but enough. I convinced myself it wasn't my business. I could have been angry. Maybe I should have been. But instead, I just felt tired of carrying around that particular weight. What would you do differently now? I asked. He thought about it for a moment. I'd remember that being a bystander is still making a choice. That conversation has stayed with me.